Welcome back to the channel, and today we're removing the seats out of this vehicle because it's had water damage and the car's absolutely full of mould and filth. So we're going to be scrubbing this car from top to bottom using various detergent products and antibacterial solutions to get rid of all the germs and mould inside, and there's going to be plenty of filth like that coming out of this one. We're also going to be tidying up the outside of the car, doing some of the rusty wheels, and we're also machine polishing the outside as well to restore the paint on it. So from the outside, this car doesn't actually look too bad. It's a 57 plate, which means this car was from 2007 if you're outside the UK, which makes it 13 years old. It's actually quite low mileage as well, only covering 74,000 miles. The only thing I can really notice, it's got something funky going on with this mirror cover. Don't know what's happened there. It's got a few scuffs and scrapes around the bodywork, and it's got some evidence of some previous paintwork because some of the panels are a little bit duller than other ones. The engine bay, as we can see, is a little bit grubby, but it's mainly just dust and surface debris, so we can clean that up as well and make that look nice and sharp again. However, the inside's a whole different game. So the seats in this car are absolutely disgusting. As we can see here, it's had years of neglect and grime, and the thing just absolutely stinks. So our challenge today is to remove all the seats out of the car and give this a real thorough deep clean. So as we move on to the more challenging aspect of this detail, it's the rear seat. So this has got a lot of filth on it and a lot of mould, and this is due to the water leak being towards the back of the car, which we'll find and discover later. But the worst part about this is that this car up to 1 week ago was doing the school run, so little kids were strapped in the back of that. So with more fake disaster details arriving on YouTube on a daily basis and rubbish thrown in cars to make them look worse than what they are, I'm going to proudly present to you something that you've not seen yet. You've had goats, you've had maggots, but today I bring you a camel in the boot. So on with the detail, and time to remove the seats. I've got to be honest, Skoda made it really easy. The bases of the seats on this car just pop out on 2 springs, and apart from one particular bolt that was a bit troublesome on the rear, the seats just unbolt quite easily. So having dealt with black mould over the years, it's 2 things you've got to be careful of. Number 1, you're definitely going to be wearing a respirator on this because the stuff's pretty dangerous. And secondly, it can really damage fabric. So sometimes you can scrub it as much as you want, steam clean it, etc, etc. But if it's damaged the colour in the fabric, you've had it. So going into this detail, I was a little bit apprehensive as to how much we were going to be able to improve it, and how much of that black mould and damage we were going to potentially be able to withdraw from the fabric. Potentially on a higher price vehicle, it would have been more cost effective to get another interior from another car, like a scrap car, breaker car, etc, and remove it. This vehicle's got a very low value here in the UK, so potentially I suppose around about £1,500. That equates roughly to about 1,850 US dollars. So you could probably get a second-hand interior for £150 for one of these, but the motor trader was willing to give it a go and see if we could just improve the seats, to a standard that somebody buying it second-hand could use the car on a daily basis. So the procedure I've gone through with this interior is I've vacuumed the seats first. I've then gone over with some built Amber Surfix HD interior cleaner, and I've pre-soaked that seat there then I've given it a good scrub with the drill brush. It's a Chemical Guys soft one, so it's not going to be too aggressive on the fabric. I'm using a Karcher Poozy 110 wet vacuum cleaner, and I'm running a product which is for the trade only, as far as I'm aware, and it's called Bio Blue, and it's got a antifungal and bacteria killing agent in it, and it's also got a really good deodorizer, so it's going to do a number of things in one here. It's going to clean, get rid of any bacteria, and try and eliminate the odour all in one go. I know a lot of people love seeing the dirty seat extraction, so what I've done with this one seat is shown almost the entire process and how lengthy this was, from scrubbing and cleaning and scrubbing and cleaning. One pass isn't going to get this stuff out. You've got to keep going over and over again trying to get all that black mould and filth and disgustingness out. The later seats in this video, I've accelerated it quite a bit, so you'll just see the initial pass of all the dirt coming out, and then I probably skipped out 2 or 3 stages of scrubbing and sucking with a vacuum cleaner, and then just got to the end result. And due to the amount of demand and questions I'm getting in the comment section as the channel grows, my intention is probably around about Christmas time to run a few, I suppose, mini reviews on some of the tools and equipment and chemicals I'm already using. This will probably be on a separate channel. I'll give you a link to that nearer the time. And the idea is that people can sort of get a good understanding of what I'm using and why. The other idea I have with that channel as well is it's kind of interesting, if I'm honest, because I've been stuck in my ways and using the same chemicals over and over and over for a long period of time. And having started YouTube, I get so many recommendations, and I've already started using different products that are new to me, and I've actually switched over to them. So this could be a real good test bed moving forward. I get a selection of these horrific cars on a daily basis, basically, because that's my job. So we can together try out different manufacturers' products on these horrible cars. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like a good test, really, because if they can clean these things, then the likelihood is it's going to be able to clean your car at home. So if I'm honest, this is the one seat that I was really worried about. As we can see close up, it's just disgraceful. And that side bolster on the right hand side had a real heavy amount of black mould, and sort of that's where I thought the potential damage to the fabric could be. Being that it's meant to be quite light grey, I was really concerned that there was going to be lots of little black dots left in there afterwards that I just couldn't clean out. So after hours and hours of scrubbing, well, it's not quite that bad, but it was getting that way. I think the rear seats took me around about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and that's what's come out of the upholstery. That's just literally the rear seats only. With that done, I really wanted a break from cleaning seats, to be honest, so I removed the front ones. And my initial plan here, which everybody's going to suggest in the comments, was just to jet wash this rear carpet because it would have been the far quicker option. However, unfortunately they have this bonded sort of wooden thing stuck to the bottom of it, and I knew if I got the jet wash on that, due to age of this really, it was going to delaminate. So the option I had was either the customer gets a new boot carpet or just improve it as best I can. So one of the things I've mentioned in previous episodes is removing spare wheels to check for water leaks, and in this car we've actually found exactly what's happened. The vehicle has had quite a heavy water leak into the boot. The rear footwell, or tyre well rather, has filled out of water, and somebody cheekily has already removed one of the rubber bungs to drain the water out. So there's a tide mark here on the side where it's obviously filled out of water. They've possibly realised that, they've knocked the rubber bung out, drained the water out, and then rather than fixing the water leak, they've just left it there so the water will drain naturally over a period of time. But unfortunately, that means the car gets quite damp inside on a regular basis. Which is why the car's quite mold-tastic. So with that, I'm going to make an educated guess. It's probably going to be the rear light clusters or the rear boot seal. More than likely the rear light clusters. They tend to have like a foam membrane around them. And just over the years where the car's obviously naturally moving and these things flex, the rubber seals or the foam membrane breaks down, the water starts to sort of seep through, and then it just pulls up into the spare wheel well. And then before you know, you've got a funky smell in the boot. It smells really, really bad. And by the time someone realises, the car's full of mould, and that's where your problem lies. So I'm using Built Hamber Surfix HD APC, so all-purpose cleaner. And that's in that pump sprayer about 10:1, so it's a reasonably strong mix. And all I'm doing is spraying it either directly onto the plastic or onto the little brush, and then I'm just going to use that to scrub the surface of the plastic trim. Then I'm going to take a damp microfiber cloth and just wipe off the dirt and the residue of the all-purpose cleaner with that. Some people just use a dry microfiber to wipe the residue off. I tend to go for a damp one because I think it's sort of a better way of doing it, because I feel if it's a dry microfiber, all you're doing is just smearing the same dirt around the dashboard. Whereas a damp one, it's like washing a car, it's helping sort of move that all-purpose cleaner and filth off into the cloth. And then periodically, I'll just chuck it in a bucket of warm water, wring it out, plus the fact you can see all the dirt and filth coming out into the water, and it keeps the microfiber clean and doing its job at removing all the dirt and grime off the trim. As we know in the previous videos, I do like using an airline. It's really good, obviously driving the grime out of sort of the plastic joins and crevices that you just can't get a brush into. And what it's also really good for, as we're about to see on this door card. Now, you could have tried to wet vac this, but the problem you're going to get, if it gets too wet, you're potentially going to have the material coming off the door card because they're usually just stuck on. By using the airline, what we can do is, I've used the all-purpose cleaner, scrubbed it quite heavily, and then what I've done is use the airline to blow any of the water and residue and dirt out in one go, and then giving it another wipe over with the cloth. And that's good enough. You'll be surprised in the end results how clean it's got those door card fabrics without getting them too wet. So the driver's seat base had something I hadn't dealt with a very long time, and that was a big chunk of chewing gum that wonderfully smeared everywhere. You can get dedicated chewing gum and bubblegum removers. They can usually be solvent based, if I'm honest, because that's the only thing that's going to get it out. And it's important that I did that first, because I find it tends to work better on drier fabric than when the seat's wet afterwards. So got that bit done first, then gone in with the all-purpose cleaner and the drill brush to extract all that filth off the seat. So after I've scrubbed and scrubbed that stubborn stain on the front of the seat, it's time to ditch that dirty water. And that's just what's come out the front seats of the car, so they were quite literally driving around in that. It's always important to clean the tops of the glass because it looks awful if a customer rolls the window down, you've got this thick tide mark. Plus the fact I always clean the inside of the car with the windows down, just in case it's got a tinted glass from factory or aftermarket, and it just restricts the amount of light coming into the car, so you can't exactly see what you're doing. So at this point I've already used a dedicated tar and glue remover to remove any tar off the lower part of the car, and I'm just using a clay bar here over the surface of the paintwork to remove any bonded contaminants that may be left on there prior to machine polishing. I'm also going to go around with this masking tape, and that's just to cover up the rubber trims, door handles and side mouldings, because if the polishing compound gets on there, or the buffer head, it can just mark those, so it's just good practice to mask it up and avoid that from happening. So the main focal point on this particular detail was obviously the inside of the car and removing all the mould and the smell and the stench. So the outside's going to get machine polished. It's what I would call a one-hit wonder. It's literally a medium cut compound with the exact same sort of head, or polishing pad rather I should say, and it's just to sort of brighten the paintwork, take any of the light sort of marring out of there and swirls etc, and just restore a bit of gloss to the car. Once I've done that, I've gone over with some Auto Glim Super Resin Polish, which is very good. It's quick and easy to apply, and for the application of this particular car, it's going to give it a real nice shine afterwards as well. So one of the things the customers asked me to do is just to spray some satin black paint over the wheels, because they're showing a little bit of weathering and signs of rust, and because the wheel trims are quite open, it just looks a bit horrible from behind. So by dusting a bit of black paint over there, it's just going to sharpen them up again. I'm using some Car Pro Pearl mix 50/50 to cover the plastic wheel arch liners to make them look nice. and the tyre dressing, I get asked this all the time. It's a trade product called Wet Wool. It's really good, it's very durable. I've not seen anything retail come near it, so I do rate it highly. With that done, we can pop the wheel trim back on and it just smartens it up a bit. So with all the black trim dressed on the vehicle, we can now look to take it outside and have a good look round it. So the outside of the car wasn't horrific to start with, but it's still quite a good improvement. Some of the panels have gone a little bit dull where they've been painted over the years, and now it all matches and it's got a nice gloss and a decent amount of reflection back in the paintwork. One of the things I was meant to be doing on this vehicle was touching up the scrapes and scratches on it, but the customer supplied the paint and it was the wrong colour. So it's something they're going to have to do when they get the vehicle back. So it's onto the before and after shots. Didn't show the engine bay being cleaned on this one. It wasn't that grubby and it's something I've covered before anyway, but however it's still quite a nice transformation seeing before and after on that. So I spoke to the customer about the boot carpet and the fact the water leak was based in the spare wheel well. It stunk pretty bad, to be honest, and it's got that black mould on there, so I gave it a bit of a clean on the day, but I've said to the customer I think it's probably better for hygiene, obviously smell factor, just to get a second-hand carpet from a breaker's yard, which is what he's done. So it did clean up okay-ish, there's quite a few marks still in there, but ultimately it's going to end up in the skip anyway, so it's not a massive concern. And also, we're the first channel to detail a camel.